What if I told you the greatest robbery in American history isn't happening in a bank? It's happening in your backyard. It's happening to the water you drink and the land you own. While you struggle with inflation, massive corporations are paying pennies for billions of dollars in public resources. They are using a law written before the light bulb was invented to legally steal from the American taxpayer. They call it extraction. I call it liquidation. And the cleanup bill? That's coming to your mailbox. From the water in California to the copper in Arizona, public assets are vanishing into private pockets. They are betting you won't notice. They are banking on your apathy. But today, we break the cycle. This isn't just a financial story. It's about who really owns America. And the answer might terrify you. Welcome to the investigation. Let's expose the heist.
Right now, someone is getting rich from the water you pay for every month. Think about that. You likely pay more for your single household water bill than a multi-billion-dollar private equity firm pays to siphon 50 million gallons of water from a national forest for an entire year. While inflation eats away at your paycheck and groceries get more expensive by the day, there is a sector of the economy operating on a business model from the 1800s. We are witnessing the biggest legal scam in American history. Massive corporations are leasing federal land and water rights for literal pennies, extracting billions in value, and leaving the American taxpayer with the cleanup bill. They call it resource extraction. I call it the privatization of nature. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how your public assets are being transferred to private balance sheets without you ever knowing. And the worst part? It's completely legal. Channels that expose financial systems like this don't survive on ad revenue alone. They survive because people like you decide they matter. The algorithm doesn't favor content that questions where billions of dollars in natural resources actually go. In fact, what you are about to hear will make powerful people very uncomfortable. So if this conversation resonates with you, if you believe these resources belong to the public and not a hedge fund, take 10 seconds right now to hit that like button and subscribe. It is the only way this message spreads. And here is what I really want to know. Be honest with yourself and look at your last utility bill. How much did you pay for water or electricity last month? $60? $100? Drop the actual number in the comments below. I bet it's more than a multinational corporation pays the Forest Service for an entire year. Let's expose this together. Now, I want to go even deeper into this. Because to truly understand how this heist works, you have to understand that the system we are living under didn't just appear overnight. It was built, brick by brick, on a foundation of laws that are so old, they predate the invention of the light bulb. This is where the scam begins. We need to travel back to what I call Moment Zero. The year is 1872. Ulysses S. Grant is president. The Civil War has ended, and the American government is desperate to encourage settlers to move west. They need people to brave the frontier, to build towns, to establish an economy in the middle of nowhere. So they passed the General Mining Act of 1872. The deal was incredibly simple, and at the time, it made sense. If you were a citizen and you found valuable minerals on public land, you could stake a claim, you could dig for it, and whatever you found, it was yours. The government didn't ask for a cut because the reward was the settlement of the West itself. But here is the problem. The world changed, the technology changed, the economy changed. But the law stayed exactly the same. Back then, this legislation was written for a lone prospector, a guy with a mule and a pickaxe trying to scrape out a living in the dirt. But today, that same law governs multinational mining conglomerates, massive corporations with industrial machinery, global supply chains, and billions of dollars in capital. And this creates a financial loophole so large you could drive a dump truck through it. Unlike the oil and gas industry, which pays a 12.5% royalty to the government for the right to drill on public land, hard rock miners do not. If you are drilling for oil, you pay the public for what you take. If you are mining for coal, you pay the public. But if you are mining for gold, copper, silver, or lithium, you pay 0%. Let that sink in for a second. Since 1872, an estimated $300 billion worth of minerals has been extracted from U.S. public lands. That is $300 billion of wealth that belonged to the public, transferred directly into private pockets, without the taxpayers receiving a single dime in royalties. It is a free lunch that has lasted for 150 years. But the theft doesn't stop at what is underground. It happens on the surface too. In 1934, the government introduced the Taylor Grazing Act. The idea was to regulate cattle grazing on public lands to prevent overgrazing. It set up a fee system, a rent that ranchers would pay to let their cattle eat public grass. But just like the mining law, the pricing mechanism is completely disconnected from economic reality. Today, the federal grazing fee is around $1.35 per animal unit month. That is the technical term, but let's compare that to the real world. If a rancher wants to lease private land to graze their cattle, the market rate averages nearly $20. $20 on the private market versus $1.35 on public land. They pay 10 times less than anyone else. Actually, nearly 15 times less. This is not a free market. This is a subsidy. This is the government taking an asset that belongs to you, the land, the grass, the water, and renting it out to a select group of operators for pennies on the dollar. And who makes up the difference? You do. The cost of managing these lands, the fences, the rangers, the restoration, often exceeds the revenue brought in by these tiny fees. We are literally paying them to take our resources. This wasn't an accident. It isn't a glitch. It is a project that has been protected by lobbyists for decades to ensure the transfer of wealth continues uninterrupted. Drop a comment below and just write, "I see the pattern." You might be sitting there asking yourself a very simple question. If this is so obvious, and if the numbers are so clearly rigged against the public, why do we let it happen? How does a government simply hand over the keys to the kingdom without a revolution in the streets? The answer isn't just about bribery or bad policy. It is about a psychological trap so elegant, so subtle, that most people don't even realize they have walked right into it. Economists have a term for this. They call it accumulation by dispossession. Now, that sounds academic. It sounds complicated. But let me translate it into plain English for you. It means they take what is yours, strip it of its public status, and sell it back to you at a premium. But to get away with it, they have to change the way you think about the world around you. The system creates a narrative that is almost impossible to argue with unless you look closely. They frame these natural resources, your forests, your water, your mountains, as idle. They tell us that unless a mountain is being blasted open for ore, it is wasted. They tell us that unless a river is being bottled and shipped to a supermarket, it is losing value. They sell us the story of job creation and economic development. But that is just the bait. The hook is something much darker. Let's look at the most infuriating example of this in modern history to see exactly how the trap snaps shut. I want you to picture the San Bernardino National Forest in California. It is a place of incredible natural beauty, a public trust protected by the government for the people. But for years, a massive corporation, formerly Nestlé, now operating under the name Blue Triton Brands, has been siphoning water out of Strawberry Creek. They have a network of stainless steel pipes running through the forest, sucking the life out of the ecosystem day and night. And here is the part that should make your blood boil. For decades, they were operating on a permit that technically expired in 1988. Think about that. 1988. Ronald Reagan was in the White House the last time that permit was valid, and the annual fee they paid to the Forest Service for this privilege? $524. Read that again. $524. You probably pay more than that for your car insurance every 6 months. You definitely pay more than that in rent. But for $500, they were allowed to extract millions of gallons of pristine water, put it into single-use plastic bottles, and sell it back to the very people who technically owned the water in the first place. The markup on bottled water is roughly 3,000%. There is no other legal business on earth with margins like that. And why are the margins so high? Because the raw material cost is effectively zero. They are selling you your own water, and you are thanking them for the convenience. This creates a mechanism that I call the privatize gains, socialize losses loop. When the water is flowing and the profits are rolling in, that money goes to private shareholders. It goes to executive bonuses. It goes to stock buybacks in New York and Switzerland. But what happens when the creek runs dry? What happens when the ecosystem collapses and the local wildlife dies off? What happens when the plastic bottles clog up the landfills and pollute the oceans? That, my friends, is on you. The public bears the cost of the drought. The public bears the cost of the environmental damage. The public bears the cost of the recycling programs. They keep the gold, and they leave us with the dust. This is the genius of the trap. It convinces you that nature has no value until it is turned into a commodity on a balance sheet. It trains you to see a forest not as a life support system, but as a warehouse of raw materials waiting to be liquidated. And the moment you accept that premise, the moment you believe that growth requires the destruction of the very things that keep us alive, the game is over. They have won, because you are no longer a citizen protecting your land. You are just a customer waiting to buy it back one bottle at a time. Drop a comment below and write, "The trap is real." Now, let's put aside the philosophy and look at the receipt, because in the world of high finance, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Someone always pays. And in this casino, the house doesn't win. The player wins. And you, the taxpayer, are the one covering the spread. We need to talk about the 3 specific costs that are draining your wallet right now. First, there is the direct financial cost, and this is where the scam turns into literal theft. The Environmental Protection Agency estimates that it will cost American taxpayers $50 billion to clean up abandoned mines littering the landscape. 50 billion. That is billion with a B. How is this possible? Because the 1872 law didn't require these companies to post environmental bonds. They didn't have to prove they had the money to clean up their mess before they started digging. So here is the business model. A massive corporation spins off a smaller shell company to run the mine. They extract the gold, the silver, the copper. They pay themselves massive dividends. And the moment the minerals run out, the shell company declares bankruptcy. They walk away. And the cleanup bill? It arrives in your mailbox. That $50 billion could have funded schools, repaired bridges, or lowered your taxes. Instead, it is being used to scrub toxic waste left behind by companies that are already counting their profits in another country. Second, there is the opportunity cost. This is a term investors use to calculate what they could have made if they made a smarter decision. When the federal government leases land for pennies, we are losing what is called fair market value. If you want to rent an apartment in New York or a storefront in Chicago, you pay what the market demands. But if you are a multinational mining conglomerate renting thousands of acres of public land, you are paying rates from the 19th century. We are running a deficit operation. We are literally renting out the assets that back the US dollar for less than the cost of the paperwork to sign the lease. It is financial malpractice on a national scale. But the third cost, the one that doesn't show up on a spreadsheet, is the most brutal of all. The ecological cost. I want to take you to a place called Oak Flat in Arizona. It sits on top of a massive copper deposit. A foreign-owned mining venture wants to extract it using a technique called block caving. Now, block caving sounds technical, maybe even safe. But what it actually means is hollowing out the earth from underneath until the surface collapses into a crater. We are talking about a hole 2 miles wide. But Oak Flat isn't just dirt. To the Apache people, it is Chichil-Budagotil, sacred territory. It is their church. It is their history. But in the calculation of net present value used by Wall Street, the spiritual value of that land is priced at zero. The ecological function of that land is priced at zero. The only thing that has a number attached to it is the copper. They are willing to trade a permanent landscape, a piece of history that has existed for thousands of years. For a quarterly earnings spike, they get the commodity. We get the crater. This is not an exchange. It is a liquidation. And every time you look at your tax stub, remember that you are subsiding the destruction of your own backyard. Drop a comment below and write, "It's my money." Now I want to take you behind the curtain, because understanding the cost is one thing, but understanding who benefits is where the whole picture comes together. And I need you to listen closely, because the industry has spent millions of dollars on PR campaigns to make sure you never make this connection. When politicians stand up to defend these ancient laws, they always tell the same story. They talk about the mom-and-pop rancher trying to feed the nation. They talk about the small prospector looking for the American dream. They use the image of the cowboy, the rugged individualist, to pull at your heartstrings. But that is a lie. That is a mask. The entities extracting the wealth from your land are not individuals. They are institutions. They are Wall Street. Let's go back to the water example for a second. When Nestlé, a massive Swiss conglomerate, decided to sell its North American water brands, who stepped in to buy them? Was it a local cooperative? Was it a conservation group? No. It was a private equity firm called One Rock Capital Partners. They bought the operation for $4.3 billion. Think about what that transaction actually represents. One Rock Capital didn't pay $4 billion for the plastic bottles. They didn't pay for the trucks. They paid for the access. They paid for the right to continue siphoning public water for pennies on the dollar. They are not in the water business. They are in the asset extraction business. Their business model is to identify a resource that is undervalued by the state, capture it, and squeeze every last drop of profit out of it for their investors. And who are the investors? Pension funds, hedge funds, the ultra-wealthy looking for safe returns. It is a wealth transfer mechanism that moves money from the public trust directly into private portfolios. But it gets even darker when you look at the mining sector. The companies ripping up public lands in Nevada and Arizona aren't American startups. They are giants like Rio Tinto and BHP. These are foreign-owned conglomerates with GDPs larger than some small nations. And here is the kicker. These companies operate all over the world. When they mine in Australia, they pay royalties. When they mine in Chile, they pay royalties. They happily pay their fair share in other countries because they have to. But here, in the United States, they pay nothing. Why? Because they have turned lobbying into a high-yield investment strategy. The mining lobby spends millions of dollars every single year in Washington to ensure that the 1872 mining law never gets updated. They don't view that lobbying money as an expense. They view it as an investment. If spending $10 million on lobbyists saves you $1 billion in royalty payments, that is a 100-to-1 return on your money. You cannot get that kind of return in the stock market. You can only get it in Congress. This is what I call the legislative moat. They have built a fortress around their business model using your own laws against you. And the people protecting this system? They are often the same people who rotate between government regulatory agencies and the boardrooms of the companies they are supposed to regulate. The revolving door keeps spinning. The regulators become the lobbyists. The lobbyists write the laws. And the public is left wondering why the land is destroyed and the treasury is empty. This isn't corruption in the traditional sense of a bribe in a paper bag. It is worse. It is structural. It is completely legal. And that is exactly why it is so profitable. Drop a comment below and write, "The system is the fraud." Now, I know what you are thinking. You are thinking that this machine is too big to break. You are thinking that if Wall Street and Washington are in bed together, there is nothing a single person can do about it. But that is exactly what they want you to think. Apathy is their best friend. If you believe you are powerless, you stop paying attention. And the extraction continues unopposed. But the truth is, the script is flipping. There are cracks in the dam. And if you know where to push, you can actually make a difference. We are not going to dismantle a century-old system overnight, but we can stop participating in it blindly. Here is the battle plan. First, you need to understand a legal concept that terrifies these corporations. It is called the public trust doctrine. This is the legal principle that states that certain resources, like water, air, and wildlife, are not owned by the government to do with as they please. They are held in trust by the government for you. The government is not the landlord. They are the trustee. You are the beneficiary. When a politician signs a lease that gives away your water for pennies, they are violating that trust. We need to start using this language. We need to demand that our local and state representatives treat natural resources as public property, not as inventory for a fire sale. Second, we need to modernize the laws. This isn't a pipe dream. The bills are already written. Legislation like the Mining Regulatory Clarity Act is constantly being debated in the halls of Congress. There is a massive push right now to implement a federal royalty on hard rock mining. We aren't even asking for something radical. We are just asking for parity. Oil and gas pay 12%. We are suggesting a royalty of just 5 to 8% on gross income for minerals. That money wouldn't just vanish. It would go into a dedicated fund to clean up the abandoned mines that are poisoning our water tables. It is a common sense solution that only fails because the mining lobby speaks louder than you do. But the third step, and this is the one you can take 5 minutes after this video ends, is about your money. You need to audit your own portfolio. Most people have no idea that their 401k or their pension fund is literally funding the destruction of the land they love. If you own a broad index fund, you likely own shares in the very mining giants and private equity firms we just talked about. You are profiting from the theft of your own resources, but you don't have to. This is where the concept of stranded assets comes in, and this is crucial for your financial safety. A stranded asset is a resource that a company counts on its balance sheet, but can never actually extract because regulations change or legal challenges stop them. Look at the Rosemont mine decision in Arizona. A massive copper project was halted by the courts because it violated federal law. Investors who were betting on that mine lost out. Investing in companies that rely on an 1872 business model is a risk. It is a bad bet. If the law changes, their margins collapse. So look for funds that screen for this. Look for ESG metrics, not the woke marketing fluff, but the real metrics that measure resource intensity and regulatory risk. Find out if your money is betting on the past or investing in the future. You have the power to starve the beast. You have the power to say, "Not with my money." And the moment enough people make that choice, the arbitrage trade falls apart. Drop a comment below and write, "I am taking control." If you have watched this far, you are not here by accident. Most people will scroll past this kind of content because it is uncomfortable. It challenges the story we have been told our entire lives. But you stayed. You listened. And that tells me something about you. You are not looking for easy answers or comforting lies. You are looking for the truth, even when it hurts. The theft of public lands is the ultimate invisible tax. It degrades the environment you live in, and it drains the public treasury that you fund, all to subsidize the profit margins of massive corporations that would never do the same for you. But now that you see it, you can't unsee it. You are now part of the minority that understands the game. So here is what I want from you. If this video connected with you, if it made something click that you couldn't quite put into words before, hit that subscribe button. This channel exists to pull back the curtain on the systems that don't want to be seen, and your support is literally what keeps this investigation alive. Drop a like if this was worth your time, and most importantly, let me know you are with me. Comment below with the phrase public trust. I want to know who is awake. I want to know who is paying attention. And if you want to keep going down this path, if you want to understand how these specific commodities, like copper and water, are actually moving the global markets right now, you need to understand the super cycle. There is a video right here that breaks down the massive economic wave that is driving this demand. It picks up exactly where this one leaves off. Click it, and I'll see you there.